And a live look at the NASDAQ market site building here in Times Square. The NASDAQ index closing at an all-time high today. The NASDAQ hit a record intraday and closing high, rising 0.7%. Now, it was a choppy session after President Trump said that he is, quote, looking at breaking up the big banks. The Dow trading dropped after those remarks, still closed just about 25 points slower. The S&P 500 gaining 2 basis points. Well, with Cinco de Mayo just days away, a key ingredient in guacamole is going to cost more now than ever before. A 22-pound box of avocados now costs around $28, and that is double the price from last year. And you can blame a surging global demand and small harvests. California's avocado harvests are expected to be down 44% because of the severe drought. Well, factory workers are churning out more and more items in the United States. For the 8th straight month, American manufacturing grew. Now, this is an area which President Trump is looking to add more jobs. The manufacturing sector has added 50,000 jobs so far this year. It lost 16,000 jobs in all of 2016. Now, while the manufacturing sector is looking solid, the U.S. economy grew at the slowest pace in 3 years this past quarter. Gross domestic product increased at a meager 0.7%. That's down from 2.1% and 3.5% in the back half of last year. But so far, this has been an outstanding earnings season. S&P 500 companies have reported on average an earnings per share increase of more than 12%. And that is the greatest since the third quarter of 2011. So why the disconnect? Well, joining us to discuss this and more is John Addis, a founder and CIO of FourWorld Capital. John, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Michelle. Good to be here.
So, John, how do you explain this really strong first quarter earnings season and the weak GDP, the disconnect between the economy and corporate earnings?
Well, I wouldn't really call it a disconnect. I mean, I think first off, people need to realize that the 0.7 GDP number was what's called the advanced GDP number. So that's the first estimate of economic GDP. And I think going back to 1990, on average,
you expect it to be revised
on
up
average,
then?
revisions average about 1.3%. So what that 0.7% really means, I think we need to wait and see. I think second, we also know that there were some problems with tax returns, refunds being paid by the IRS, which I think a lot of people are attributing to impacting growth as well.
All right, but let's look at the first quarter earnings, because on average, companies are reporting about 12% increases. So does this bode well for the U.S. economy? Can we take that to extrapolate that the U.S. economy is growing despite what the GDP numbers show? Or is this a lot due to profits and growth overseas, because these are international companies?
Yeah, I think you can attribute most of it to the U.S. I think if you look at the two sectors that experienced the most growth on a sales basis in the first quarter, it was energy and financials, and the vast majority of that is going to be domestic growth. So I do think it bodes well, and like I said, I don't attribute a lot to a first quarter advanced GDP number.
So what is your read on the economy now?
I think we're looking at a 2 to 3% annualized GDP for 2017.
Well, the president kind of rattling the financial sector today, saying that he is considering breaking up big Wall Street banks. That's something that he did say during the campaign trail. Now he says, speaking to Bloomberg, that he's looking at that right now. What would that mean?
Well, he didn't give any details, but what he has said is he's considering a 21st century Glass-Steagall. So presumably that's different than, you know, the old Glass-Steagall law, which was a true breakup of consumer and investment banking. So, I mean, one idea that we've been speculating is that they may impose further regulations on the global banks to ensure that financial deposits, the consumer side of the business, can't be used to finance the investment banking side of the business, which is something that would make sense from a risk perspective, I think.
Now, you say further regulation, but the financial sector has been rallying on this promise and concept of deregulation. He said that he was going to, quote, do a number on Dodd-Frank, and now it sounds like he's going in the opposite direction.
Well, again, maybe regulation is not the right word. Maybe further, maybe distinct separation is a better way of looking at it, where if entities want to stay together as a single unit, the two halves, the consumer side and the investment bank, are going to be clearly separated from a risk standpoint, or in the alternative, the banks can be required to hold increased capital buffers.
All right, thank you so much, John Addis, CIO of FourWorld Capital. Thank you. Now, stick around though. This may be something you'd be interested. This is not the mosque you've been looking for, but it is definitely worth a second look. A notable number is $1.4 million, and that is how much it'll cost you for a 24-karat gold Darth Vader mosque. A Tokyo jewelry store made the life-size mosque. It took 10 goldsmiths 3 months to create the prototype, and it's for display purposes only. It cannot be worn. Something you'd be in the market for?
Probably a little out of my price range.
Are you a big Star Wars fan?
Yes.
All right, John Addis, thanks so much. Well,